What's up, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Kings of Tennessee podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my incredible co-host, the one, the only, Billy Derrick. Billy, post-Halloween show. How was your Halloween? How was your weekend?
It was a good Halloween, man. I used to love Halloween as a kid. Love dressing up. But you get older, you know, most people, staying in because it was freezing, man. I was outside some of the night, and I was like, God, I gotta get back inside, man. Um, and the football, of course, wasn't great, so that didn't help. But no, it was good, and Halloween kind of symbolizes, all right, home stretch, right? You got, from here on out every game matters. Not that every game doesn't matter overall in the regular season, but Halloween's kind of that point of okay, from Halloween through the end of bowl season. If you're a top 10 team contender, especially in the playoff, this is when it matters. And especially when we get into the 12 team playoff next year, that is when it is, it might start mattering even earlier, which is what I like. So, this is how football season is coming down the home stretch.
It is officially chili season and soup season. I've
Yeah.
just absolutely, I think I've had chili every night since Saturday night, honestly. It's getting cold. It's my kind of weather. I love walking out and Monday, I think was I walked outside. It was windy. It was cold as all get out, and it was raining. And I finally felt like my time of weather is here, and I'm so excited about it. Halloween, to me, like you said, it kicks off everything. Holiday wise, we're not that far from Thanksgiving, which sadly means we're not that far from the end of the season. Uh, so it's winding down, but at the same time, it's picking up. So we're getting to that. We're getting to the fun, nitty gritty aspect of college football. We finally have the first playoff rankings dropping on Halloween, which was cool. So we'll get into that a little bit as well. Um, I think let's start our show how we always start with the beloved helmet stickers that we love to give out here on the Kings of Tennessee podcast. Billy, I'm going to let you start out by telling us who deserved a Billy Derrick helmet sticker from this past weekend.
Jace, you got to start in Lawrence, Kansas and I'm going to go with their coach, Lance Leipold. Now, their team obviously deserves a helmet sticker. Jason Bean, their backup quarterback, I thought played pretty well. He did throw two interceptions and almost ended up costing them the game, but I thought he did just enough, especially running the ball. I mean, he's a long, lanky guy that I think is hard to tackle, especially when he gets out of the pocket. So credit to Kansas. That fourth down conversion, won them the game late. And I give Kansas all the credit. I heard a lot of, well, Oklahoma didn't come ready to play. Not surprised. The Venables coach team lost in a game they couldn't afford to lose. But I mean, man, you got to look at it and just give Kansas credit. I mean, Lance Leipold at Kansas has done an unbelievable job. I mean, who would have ever thought someone could walk into Kansas and turn that program around like he has? So that's the first helmet sticker, and I'm giving it. I guess you'd put it on the shirt there of of Lance Leipold there, but no, love what Kansas was able to do. I've got uh, my brother-in-law is a big Kansas fan. He's actually they live in Kansas, so it's always fun when the Jayhawks get a win. So yeah, happy for Kansas. They get my first. And then scrolling through here, Chase, I was thinking about Oregon and their dominant win over Utah. But I kept looking down the line, and I'm gonna give it to Georgia Tech, and specifically Haynes King. Haynes King, 23 of 30, 287 yards, four touchdowns, and only one interception. Now, Drake May had a good game on the other side, too. But, man, you go back and look at that game, he was dicing up that North Carolina defense. I mean, he had some, good receivers. I think Singleton had 8 catches, Rutherford had 6. So he was dicing it up, throwing it to different guys. I was impressed. Haynes King's a good quarterback. We forget, he was I thought he got mistreated at A&M. I know they had, Wegman coming in right behind him, but, this Georgia Tech team, this is back-to-back weeks now where Haynes King's starting to find some rhythm. So, I very well easily could have given it to Oregon, but Georgia Tech, they give North Carolina their second straight loss, and I like what they're doing down there. I think they're doing what they can. They had that win over Miami that was just handed to them, of course, but I thought it was a big win over North Carolina at home. Excite the home crowd, and we haven't seen Georgia Tech be be good in a while. I mean, of course, under Paul Johnson, Megatron, those guys, but yeah. So I'm going to give my second one to Georgia Tech, specifically Haynes King for his performance, putting up 46 points, and all of a sudden that North Carolina defense is looking lackadaisical. So yeah, I got Georgia Tech quarterback Haynes King, and then who was my first one? Kansas. So Kansas Jayhawks and Lance Leipold.
Feel really bad for Mac Brown. I like Mac Brown a lot, and
I agree. I'm pretty. His brother Watson is on. He's on the show occasionally, and he's a great guy. It's a great family, and I feel for Mac. Hopefully, they're able to turn that around because they've got a heck of a quarterback, man. But yeah, I'm with you, Chase. I feel anytime I see North Carolina lose, I feel for Mac.
I was thinking that the whole time checking in on that score as the night went on. Uh, Thought I was hoping they could pull it off, but well, I think they can bounce back. They're at least heading to a bowl game, and I think they can win out and make a pretty decent bowl and pretty decent run at it. My two helmet stickers for the first time in our show's history. I know we usually get we do players and we do teams. I'm gonna do two players from one team,
Oh,
and it's an early slate game. I got to watch a lot of this game. Actually, in fact, I watched all of this game thanks to YouTube TV's multi-view. This was one of the games that I paid way too close attention to. Florida State earned a 41-16 victory over Wake Forest this past weekend. And I'm going to go player one, running back Trey Benson. On the ground, 10 carries, 55 yards, one touchdown. Through the air, 4 catches, 100 yards, and another touchdown
as
to
a
add
running back,
along as a
where's
running
that?
back.
Where's that Wake defense? My goodness.
And it's the receiving yards was big. He had an 80-yard screen pass he took to the house, which really helped both of those numbers out. Uh, but you look at this guy, he's 205, probably more than that. I think he's in the 200s, and he's a bigger guy, but he runs so hard, and he's an elusive back. He's pretty solid at catching the ball out of the backfield. Uh, really elusive, makes the first defender miss 90% of the time. And I think when you want to talk about running backs in the country, he's kind of slept on, in my opinion. We talk about Judkins out of Ole Miss and maybe even Tennessee's three-headed monster at running back. But Trey Benson, to me, is the best running back in the country. And I think he showed it this season with big games against LSU. Even I know Wake Forest isn't crazy good, but to do that against a team in any Power Five conference is pretty impressive to me. So I think, he's a guy, and I've started my scouting already and putting together my big board. I was doing that last night, getting ready for this upcoming draft. Trey Benson is a name to watch out for if your favorite team in the NFL is looking for a running back, because he's going to be playing on Sundays and he's going to be
Mm-hmm.
possibly a year one, year two starter off the rip. And then my other player, and yes, I could be biased because I have a future on this guy to win the Heisman Trophy, but the kid is
Jordan
unreal.
Travis.
Jordan Travis, man, he had 300 yards
Mm-hmm.
passing at halftime. He goes 22 for 35, 359, 3 touchdowns. Uh, and let me see if I can find his rushing stats. But he's looked great. He had 7 carries for 29 yards and a rushing touchdown to add on to that. But I know he isn't really torching everybody, and so he's not getting the praise of like a Michael Penix or a even a Bo Nix, honestly, or a JJ McCarthy. But I think he's up there. I think right now he's as good as any quarterback in the country. And he's played he had a big game against LSU. I know that was week one, and it feels like it was forever ago, but it's still a good SEC team that he kind of torched. He doesn't turn the
Hmm.
ball over a whole lot. He's a really good improviser. Now I don't know how well his game will translate to that next level, but I think we both know that those offenses in the NFL are kind of leaning toward that improv im, I don't even know how to say it. More of an improviser
Improvisation.
quarterback.
Yeah.
Yes, improvisational
Yeah.
quarterback. So he might not translate incredible incredibly to the next level, but I think right now he has a really good shot if he can just stay clean and they make the playoffs. And I think they have a really good chance at making the playoffs. That he's going to wind up in New York, and there's a decent chance he could get called at the end of that ceremony. So we're still alive. That future bet is still alive. Shout out Jordan Travis. Shout out Trey Benson. Florida State looks good. They look really good. And an ACC that's kind of falling apart around them, they're shining. And
That's an
the
awful conference.
It's a really bad conference. And the only team really that uh, Florida State's schedule is really brutal going forward. There's nobody on the schedule left. And it's looking probably, I think, Louisville in the ACC title game because the ACC does not have divisions this year. They got rid of that going into the season. So it's looking like Louisville more than likely. That should be a good game. But that's really his only tough test, that team's tough test going into the playoffs. So I like Florida State to get in the playoffs, and I like them to win the ACC, and I still like Jordan Travis to win the Heisman. We're fighting, we're calling, we're not giving up yet. That bet's not dead yet. But speaking of playoffs, we had our very first official college football playoff ranking, and I think it's time that we both give our first ever inaugural Kings of Tennessee podcast, college football playoff top tens. And I'm going to give the floor to Billy to explain to us his college football playoff top 10.
All right, we went over it earlier, and for me, Chase, I agree with most of the teams where the teams were slotted last night in the reveal. I like Ohio State at one. I think they've got the two best wins in the country with at Notre Dame, and then of course Penn State. I mean, Penn State's still considered a top 10 team, not by me though. Well, I guess top 15. They're at 11 right now, but it's still a really good win. I like Georgia at two. I think like if you put truth serum to me, I would probably say like I test Georgia is the best team in the country, but they just don't really have they don't have a win that really stands out yet. I think they'll get one, but I like them still at two. I bumped Florida State up to three and flip flopped them in Michigan. I think Florida State's win over LSU puts them over the edge there. I do like Michigan at four, and then pretty much chalk. I like Washington and Oregon. They're at 5 and 6 because Washington beat them, and then I like Texas over Alabama, 7 and 8 because Texas beat them. But Oklahoma, that loss to Kansas kind of put a downer on their season. I think for me, um, they're still alive and they'll of course probably play Texas in the Big 12 title. But I jumped Ole Miss over Oklahoma, and then I jumped Penn State over Oklahoma. And I know Penn State has that loss to Ohio State, but I just don't think Oklahoma is after that loss. And I know that's recency bias. We always talk about recency bias, but that loss just kind of I think it showed some weaknesses for Oklahoma. So I bumped Ole Miss to 9, right behind Bama, and then Penn State at 10. And I mentioned this earlier off air. Missouri and Louisville or Missouri and LSU, I think are right there behind them. They're gonna they have those two teams right there have some chance to cause some chaos. Mizzou's got Georgia this week. LSU's got Bama. So all of a sudden, if they win, or if even one of them wins, that would cause some chaos. So, they're right there. I think there's still some teams, even outside the top 10 that could play a role. I mean, Penn State. Think about them. They're still kind of hanging on by a thread. I don't think they're a team that's going to make the playoff, but theor- theoretically they're still alive. So, yeah, pretty much chalk. I flip flopped a couple of teams, but I do I like Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, FSU 3, Michigan 4, Washington at 5, Oregon, Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, and then Penn State. So that's my top 10. I like what they did last night.
I agree with you. I actually from 5 to 9 we have the exact same rankings: Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. I still have Oklahoma at 10. I know that loss to Kansas is a tough one, and they struggled against UCF, but I think that win over Texas is a lot better than anything Penn State has done. I know you can count a close loss to Ohio State, but this past weekend completely took me out of the Penn State race. Watching that team against Indiana, they look awful. That offense does
Yeah.
not know how to operate. That defense is going to keep them in games, but they were playing, both teams were playing, let's see who can give up 90-yard touchdowns. Let's see who can give up the most 90-yard touchdowns this past weekend. That was an atrocious football game. Uh, Indiana, congrats to Indiana. They hung in there. They should have gone for it. I hate that so much that they gave it away. They had a chance, fourth and goal. You don't kick that field goal to tie the game. You're Indiana. It's Penn State. You go for it. Especially Tom Allen, his seat's been hot. Why do you not go for it? You're going to lose anyway because, as you see, Penn State drives down the field immediately after that and scores as time expires. So go for it. I hate teams that do that, especially if you were that big of an underdog, 30.5 point underdog. You go for it. Fourth and goal. You score that touchdown. You're gonna lose either way. Might as well go out fighting. So yeah, I have Oklahoma at 10. Now my top four, I should say. I have Florida State at 4. I have Georgia at 3. I think Florida State has looked great, and I think Florida State's going to be able to move up even more in my book. Georgia, I guess I'm like everybody else that they're two-time national champions. To be the man, you got to beat the man. I think they drop a game in the next 3 weeks, whether that be us at Tennessee, whether it be Missouri on the road or at home for them. Uh, then I have Ohio State at 2. I think Ohio State, yeah, they have a win against Notre Dame and they have a win against Penn State. But looking at what Notre Dame has become since, Notre Dame's lost another game to Louisville since that Ohio State game, and Penn State is not very impressive. I still don't think Ohio State's number one team. I don't think they're the most dominant team. I don't think they're the most all around team. And I think on November 27th, when they play Michigan, November 26th, around that time, I think they're going to get beat by Michigan because I just don't think they have what it takes to keep up with that smash mouth football team for Michigan, who, in fact, those darn dirty cheaters with their iPhones pulled out, recording their Snapchat videos, the number one team in the first ever CFP rankings is the Michigan Wolverines. I still think
Mm.
that Michigan, even though they're playing nobodies, you've seen Georgia struggle against nobodies. You've seen Ohio State sometimes struggle against nobodies. But the team that's beaten every nobody by a billion is Michigan. And I think they're ramping up. They're gonna get Penn State soon. I think they're gonna get. They've already played Michigan State. They blew Michigan State out. I think by the time they get to Ohio State, they're going to be undefeated, and I think they're going to be ready after all this noise off the field and the rumors that Ohio State is the one who started all of this. I think Michigan's going to want to punch Ohio State directly in the mouth, and I don't know if Ohio State's going to be able to respond. So I think Michigan right now, to me, is the most dominant team in the country, and we're gonna this. It's all going to play out. That's the beauty of these rankings. If you look at this, Michigan plays Ohio State. Those two teams will play each other out. Georgia has some tough tests coming up. That should play itself out as well. So that's the beauty of the college football playoff rankings. Is they're gonna change. Next week we'll have there's a good chance we have a different top 10, and the week after. And that's the beauty of the sport. And I'm so excited. I keep seeing Billy. I don't know if you've seen these. The scenario for the 12 team playoff bracket. I know they've been putting
Hmm.
them out every week, and it's so fun to even think about that because I'm so excited about that. 12 team playoff is going to be the best thing ever, and I'm going to be
Hmm.
so. I think we're both going to be really giddy to get to that point next year and to see
Oh
how it
yeah.
all shakes up. So that's something to look forward to. But I'll just run through real quick again. Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, FSU at 4, Washington, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma. If you want to see our rankings, like if you want to get a good sense of what they look like, you can follow us on Twitter at the Kings of Tennessee podcast. And that's where we post all our graphics. So Billy's top 10 gets posted to our Twitter page. My rankings get posted to our Twitter page as well. So give us a follow, give us a like. Make sure you're keeping up with us all the time because this is a fun podcast, and we like to make sure you get our pick'em picks on there. So if you like to place bets and you want to follow us and go down with us swinging like we always do, you can follow us on there. Lock them in every single weekend, along with our rankings, and it's a good page, and it's a fun time. So follow us there. We would be glad to see you do that. Speaking of going down fighting with us and our picks, I think it's about that time, Billy, to get into our favorite segment. Let me find our pick'em records real quick. It's pick'em time, baby, and it has been quite the pick'em season so far. It's been a roller coaster to say the least. I think Disney World would be the way to describe our track record so far because we're just on a roller coaster, and sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But here we go. Here's our records. Billy is sitting at 65, 66 and 1, 3 and 7 in locks of the week. Billy had Vanderbilt 25.5 this past week. You literally lost by half a point this past week, which is the
That was
most
brutal.
tragic thing. Uh, I'm 61, 69, nice, and 1, 3 and 7 locks of the week. The first time I was 2-0 in locks, and then last week I was sitting at 2 and 7, 7 straight locks of the week lost. I finally won one again, Billy. Thank you to the boys in orange and white for pulling off the not the upset against Kentucky, but just covering. Good teams win, great teams cover. We did both. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Uh, this is a again. I know you. We said this off air. You said last week was dull. I agree. I think last week was very dull, and something kind of tells me that this week might just be the same. There are chances for a few potential upsets, but there's nothing crazy. We're getting there. The craziness is coming. Winter is coming, but just not yet. Let me pull up our slate. The first game of the Pick'em slate this week, Texas A&M, the Aggies, traveling to Oxford, Mississippi as 4-point underdogs to take on the Ole Miss Rebels with the over-under sitting at 54.5. Billy, I'm going to let you kick off this week's Pick'em with A&M and Ole Miss.
Yeah, I like this matchup. I like the spot for A&M. They're due for a win like this, but and it's dangerous, right? I mean, anytime you host Jimbo Fisher, you really never know what's going to happen. But I still like Ole Miss here. I like Ole Miss to cover, but I love the under here. 53.5, that's a lot. Ole Miss's defense, I think, will play a part in that. I don't think A&M is going to be able to score a ton. I think Ole Miss will put up points, but I'll give me Ole Miss to cover the 4 points, and then give me the under in that one. I like the Rebels to win that one.
I am going to agree with you on Ole Miss covering. I think, um, as as overthinky, like we talked about earlier, as Lane Kiffin is in these type of games, I think the win against LSU earlier in the year has kind of calmed him down maybe in bigger games. I think he got a taste of, okay, I can win games like this at home, and I can beat teams that usually I would lose to. And I think this is another game this weekend where if you're a fader and a hater of Lane Kiffin, you're taking A&M easily. You're putting your house on it. But I'm going to go Ole Miss -4. I think they're going to cover. I think that offense is, it's a pretty high-powered offense, and A&M's offense is not awful. I think they've covered the overs quite a bit this year. So I'm going to go over 54.5. I think this is a shootout. Uh, but I think Ole Miss gets it done probably by a touchdown. I think we're looking at a touchdown game. But don't be surprised if both teams, can peak into the 30s. And if that's the case, this to me this is a game that the over hits by halftime. And we're not sweating anymore. We're cool. We're drinking a pink lemonade got our feet kicked up, and we're cashing our first bet of the day. So I like Ole Miss -4 and the over 54.5. Our next game, this game should be fun. Uh, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, good old Catholic boys, going into South Carolina to take on the struggling Clemson Tigers. Clemson at home is a 3-point dog with the over under set at 45.5. Now, I will say this, usually the home team gets 3. So this tells me that Vegas sees Notre Dame is probably a 6-point favorite, 6.5-point favorite with that point swing. That being said, I know I've had Notre Dame's back this year, and I know I've been on them a lot, but the most dangerous thing in the world is a animal that has nothing to lose, that's backed into a corner and is trying to fight out. And to me, this has lock of the week potential. Give me Clemson +3 at home against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and give me the under of 45.5. I think Dabo, as much crap as he's gotten recently, is going to come out of that corner swinging. This is a game that they should lose, and I think they win.
Interesting. Very interesting. It's hard for me to bet on Clemson here. I think Notre Dame has a good chance to win out here because I think they've got. It feels like they've gotten their losses out of their system. I think they're a better team than Clemson. I think this line is. I just feel like it's begging you to take Notre Dame, and I'm going to do it. I'm taking Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a close game. The over under is pretty low, and I think it'll be a low scoring game. I think both teams have good defenses. Notre Dame, I just think has a little too much physicality. I think they've got better weapons on offense. Neither of these teams are super explosive, but I think Notre Dame showed something with their 56-point total last week. So I'm going to ride with Notre Dame here -3, and I'm going to go under. I'm taking the under. I think it's going to be a low scoring battle, but Notre Dame finds a way to pull it out at the end, and they barely cover. That's going to be close though. That field goal line is kind of tough, but yeah, give me Notre Dame -3, and then I'll take the under 44.5 there.
That game is a part of the early slate, the 11 o'clock slate. Both these games are. So getting off to a fun start on early Saturday morning. Speaking of a fun start and a fun game, this is going to be, I think this is going to be a potential for game of the day. I think it has all the makings of it. Missouri going on the road to Athens to take on the number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia coming in at 15.5-point favorite at home. The over under set at 54.5. Billy, I'm gonna let you lead off with Georgia and Missouri.
Yeah, man, I like what Missouri's been doing. I love their offense. I think they've got one of the best receivers, if not the best. Luther Burden is a freak. They've got Theo Weiss as well, like the running back Schrader. But I've been really impressed with Carson Beck. He feels like he's settled in to that role at quarterback. I think it's a close game. I think Missouri has enough firepower to compete for 3.5 quarters. But I think it gets late and Georgia kind of imposes their will. So give me Missouri to cover plus 15.5. But give me Georgia to win. So I like Georgia to win. It's under city this week, man. I'm taking the unders. A lot of unders have hit this year as a whole. 54.5, that's a lot. I think Missouri's going to score. I think both teams will score, but I don't know if they get to that lot that number there. So I'm going to go Missouri plus 15.5. But give me the under in that one.
I am going to agree with you here on Missouri 15.5. If this game was in Missouri, I think Missouri would have a better chance of winning this game. But we both know that that crowd in Athens is a tough one to get past, and home field advantage is never a more obvious thing than in college football. Like you look at uh, Georgia and Athens, Tennessee at Neyland, LSU in Death Valley. It's hard in this sport to go on the road and get a big game victory under your belt. And I think Missouri, we talked about it off air. They've had trouble finishing games. They had LSU right where they wanted them, let that slip away, and took a a very hard loss for them this season. Their only loss on the year. But I still like them to cover. I don't think Georgia is that good this year. Uh, they're not as dominant as they have been. That offense, while it may be finding its legs as of late, I just don't think they have what it takes to really kill somebody that is Missouri's level. So I'm going to take Missouri 15.5. I'm going to fade you though. I'm going to go over 54.5 because, and I don't like that. I really hate that. That's the most cautious over of my life because I really think Georgia could keep Missouri off the scoreboard for a long time. But I think Missouri can hang in there, and I think they're going to go blow for a while, and Georgia pulls away late. But it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be the one of the best games of the day. Speaking of fun games, a game that honestly, on paper, might not look fun because it's two of the, kind of lower rated teams, but it is one of the Kings of Tennessee teams, Auburn, going into Nashville as a 12.5 point favorite to take on Billy Derrick's Vanderbilt Commodores. The over under set at 49.5. Billy, I'm gonna go ahead and give you my pick for this game, and then I'm gonna let you give us a rundown and a quick breakdown of this game. I like Vanderbilt here. I like Vanderbilt 12.5. That's a really big line for these two teams. And I could see that line maybe against a Missouri, probably a little bit more against Missouri. But I think 12.5 for Vanderbilt against this Auburn team at home is a steal. So another game that has lock of the week potential. But I like Vanderbilt here to cover at home. And I think the under of 49.5 is a pretty safe bet here.
Yeah, Vandy's just not very good, Chase. I mean, I don't think there's really any other way to say it. They're not a good football team right now, and I haven't really taken them to cover many games this year. I think this is an opportunity where they can, but I don't know, man. I just think I think Auburn is explosive enough. And the thing is, Vanderbilt doesn't score. Like they don't score. Um, and I know they covered against Georgia, but that's the only game they've covered in. Vanderbilt's quarterback situation is a mess. AJ Swan is hurt. He hasn't even played in several weeks. Ken Seals started against Ole Miss, but then they had Walter Taylor go in there. So who knows what they've got going on at quarterback. I like Auburn here. I know that's kind of risky. I don't love that because you never know what Hugh Freeze is going to give you on any given week. But I do like Auburn to cover. I'm going to go over. I think Auburn puts up points, but I think Vanderbilt will also put up their share, and I think it's just enough to go over. Give me Auburn minus 12.5 and over 49.5 there.
What real quick, really quickly, what do you make of the quarterback situation in Nashville currently?
Well, I mean, it's just a mess. AJ Swan started the season, and he's a talented kid, but he made some brutal mistakes. And he made some mistakes against UNLV, against Wake Forest, and then that Kentucky game, he had two pick sixes, and then they ended up going to Ken Seals. Ken's just not. I mean, he's a veteran guy. He takes care of the football, but he had a brutal interception last week against Ole Miss. He had an interception against Georgia. They just haven't taken care of the football. They don't have a very good offensive line, so that has hurt the quarterbacks. Um, and they've got this third string Walter Taylor, who's a good runner. He's huge. He's 6'7". So they might just stick with him, Chase. They might ride him out and do kind of a Mike Wright type system last year. And it might go well. I mean, it might go better just because he is a runner. They can't throw the football though. They can't get anything through the air because they can't protect their quarterback. And for whatever reason, the receivers haven't got enough separation. They've got some guys at receiver, but just haven't been able to get them the football. So it's just a mess, Chase. I mean, to describe it, bluntly, it's a disaster. So they need a quarterback. I think they probably end up going to the portal for a quarterback. I don't think the quarterback next year for Vanderbilt is on their roster. Um, but yeah, it's just a mess. And they, the biggest thing though is their offensive line. When you don't have an offensive line, it hinders any quarterback. So it's been a mess, Chase, and for Clark Lee, I feel for him and that staff. I think they're going to figure it out. I think they're gonna get this thing back in the right direction, but they haven't had enough this year. They haven't had enough. They're not explosive enough. They're not fast enough on defense. Playing too many freshmen and sophomores. And they're going to have to play, I think, a sophomore at quarterback for the rest of the season. You'll see a little bit of Ken Seals, but it's either Ken Seals or Walter Taylor on the depth chart right now. So that's kind of where they're at. It hasn't been good. So there's really nothing to sugarcoat it with.
Well, it's been tough to watch because I was kind of higher on Vanderbilt coming into the year. I know we did our win totals before the beginning of this year, and I think we both had Vanderbilt going over. Uh, they still can. It's just kind of a long shot now that we're getting deeper into the schedule for them. But we'll see. We'll see what they can do this weekend. If they can somehow manage to pull this game off, it's gonna look, it's a big stepping stone, I think, to kind of build on for next year, and that's all you can ask for that team, especially the way this season has kind of gone. So yeah, hoping I know the boys in orange and white are hoping that the team in Nashville can kind of get back to being what they were kind of when they were whipping us not that long ago. So we're hoping for it. Speaking of teams in orange and white and getting whipped, Kansas State on the road to take on Texas. Texas at home is a 4-point favorite with the over-under set at 49.5. And the reason I said teams in orange and white and whipping is because I think Texas whips Kansas State this weekend. I know Kansas State's been kind of competitive this year and last year, but I think with Malik Murphy, Texas is still in good hands. I think even without Quinn Ewers, who suffered I think, shoulder injury a couple weeks ago, he's been out. He's going to still miss some extensive time. I think Malik Murphy is going to be just fine in this Texas offense. They looked pretty solid against BYU this past week. And I think they're going to wipe the floor with Kansas State. That's a hot prediction this weekend, and that's my hot prediction this weekend. So give me Texas -4 at home against Kansas State, and I'm gonna take the over because I think Texas might get in. I think Texas hits the 30s, and I think Kansas State scores a couple times. So over 49.5 seems pretty simple to me. Billy, where are you leaning toward in this Texas Kansas State game?
I agree with you, man. I think Texas is going to get up off the mat. Well, they didn't lose, but they've been struggling a little bit without Quinn Ewers. So, but I think this is kind of a coming out party for Malik Murphy. I thought he played decent. I mean, he's a physical freak. So, um, I think if they can find something with Murphy until Ewers gets back, I think they'll be fine. Um, K State's good. K State's a good team. Chris Kleiman has done a heck of a job up there replacing Bill Snyder, but I'm with you. I like Texas to cover -4, right? It's -4. So
Yes.
and then what's the over under there, Chase?
I have it at 49.5.
Okay, 49.5. Go over. Go over. I think both teams will probably put up points. I like Kansas State's quarterback. I think they are an offense that's not really much ground and pound anymore. I mean, they're able to score points. We know Texas scores points, so give me the horns and the over in that one.
That's our first and only so far agreements on both spread and over under. So that'll be a fun time that we both get to sweat out uh in Texas for this weekend. Speaking fun games, I know earlier I've mentioned, some game of the week aspects with Missouri and Georgia. But looking at it now, Bedlam is always fun. Bedlam is one of the best rivalries in college football, and we're going to be shedding some tears this weekend because it's going to be the first one. It's going to be the last one, maybe ever, definitely for a long time as Oklahoma moves out of this conference. And it's just sad. I love this game. It's a rivalry game that's no matter how bad one team is, it's always a street fight, and that's why we call it Bedlam because it's a fist fight till the very end. It's a shootout. It's a fun time watching Oklahoma and Oklahoma State play. Oklahoma going into Oklahoma State as 6-point favorites. The over under set at a very high 61.5. Billy, where are we leaning for Bedlam this weekend?
Oh, that is that's a tough one. I think for Oklahoma, they've got to get up off the mat. I mean, they've got no other option, and so for them, I just think they need to do their thing. I mean, they've got players, man. I mean, they've got good players all over the field. Dylan Gabriel is a really good quarterback. Um, but Oklahoma State, man, they've improved. I mean, they really have. So I like them to cover this number just because it is Bedlam, and man, you never know what's going to happen there. I mean, they call it Bedlam for a reason. So I'm going to go. I thought about this for a while. I'm going to go Oklahoma State. I'm going to Oklahoma State to cover. I think Texas or not Texas. I think Oklahoma wins, but give me Oklahoma State to keep it close. I think it might end up being a you know close game, maybe 1 point win, 3 point win, but I think 5.5 is a little too many points there. Give me the under though. 6.5 is a lot. I know it's Bedlam. They usually get over that. But I'm gonna go dangerous here and go under. So give me Oklahoma State plus 5.5 and under 60.5.
I think Oklahoma's defense is really good, and I think that 61.5. I think the under probably will have more plays this weekend than the over. But speaking of getting dangerous, I like Oklahoma State to cover, but I'm gonna do you one better, Billy. I kind of want Oklahoma State money line. It's a rivalry game
Ooh.
at home. Oklahoma State is looking good. They beat the brakes off of a not very good Cincinnati team, but they're heating up as the season is going on. And it's a get back game. You could say it's a good bounce back spot for Oklahoma, but it's a very good proving ground for Oklahoma State. And I think this is a chance for them to. They're going to be playing hard. Both teams are because it's the last Bedlam for who knows how long. But I think when we think of Bedlam, it's always Oklahoma and then Oklahoma State. So if you have that mindset coming into this weekend, Oklahoma State is going to be dangerous. This game is so fun that I can't even contain my English to express myself for Oklahoma State. It's that fun of a game. But I like Oklahoma State money line. I like it. I think it's a good play. While it's a bounce back game for Oklahoma, like I said, I think Oklahoma State gets it done, and I think they're going to be in a very good position to make a pretty good bowl once the season is wrapped up. But I like over 61.5. I think Oklahoma's defense is really good, but Kansas put up 38 on them this past weekend. Oklahoma State, don't be surprised if they hit the 30s as well. And I think Dylan Gabriel is going to try to put up points in this game. I think both teams are going to wind up in the 30s. If we get overtime, this could be 80s combined. We can get to a 90s. This game is crazy. So it's points, points, points for me this weekend. I like Oklahoma State +6, Oklahoma State money line, and the over 61.5. But let's get to it, Billy. Let's get down to brass tacks. Let's do it. We've gone through our pick'em slate. It's been a rough year. It's been an up and down year. And with this rough year, the worst spot for us was locks. Locks of the week we're both 3-7. So we both need a win this weekend. Billy Derrick, what is your lock of the week?
Man, looking at the card, it's kind of tough. Like I want to take Notre Dame -3. I think Texas is a sneaky lock. I was thinking I'm gonna go Notre Dame. I'm gonna go Notre Dame lock of the week -3 against Clemson. And it looks like you're going the opposite of me with this jersey you're throwing on. But I don't know, Chase. I think Notre Dame's better than Clemson. Clemson's kind of reeling right now, and I know they're at home. Howard's Rock, whatever. But I'm gonna ride with the Irish. Go Irish! I think they cover. That is my lock of the week.
I don't know where my pen was, but it doesn't matter. Yes, Billy. I thought I was off camera with that jersey on. I was gonna do a little surprise, but yeah, I think for the first time this year, we're going head to head on locks. So one of us is gonna go to 4-7. The other will fall to 3-8. I'm rocking with the Tigers this weekend, baby. I'm rocking with Clemson at home, +3, lock of the week. Dabo, he's gonna come back swinging. The Clemson nation has not lost faith in Dabo for the most part, from what I can tell. I think they're still positive on him. I think Clemson comes out swinging, and I think they pull it off in Death Valley, their Death Valley. Clemson +3 this week is my lock of the week. So very interested to see where our locks go. Real quick before we get out of here, Billy. Uh, Football season is still going on. We're getting down to that nitty-gritty aspect of college football. But with that comes college basketball. And I don't know about you, college basketball is the best, dude. Like college basketball and college football up there, they're not that far apart. Tennessee opens their season on Monday against Tennessee Tech. They look good. I'm this is probably the highest I've been on a Tennessee basketball team in quite some time. I still don't trust Unslick Rick in March. He's not Slick Rick anymore because of his March. He's Unslick Rick now. But I like the new guy, Dalton Connect, dude. I don't know if you saw that dunk.
He's a player.
I think he's going to be our best player on the team. I think he's going to be dominant. He's what we need. An athletic big who can handle the ball and he's not afraid to get down and score points. We have the guards coming back in Vescovi and Ziegler. Projected to win the SEC. I don't like that. I hate high expectations for any Tennessee team. But it's going to be a fun season. We're going to try to bring you college basketball coverage as well to the very best of our abilities. Billy, you said Vanderbilt opens up Tuesday. Tell us a little bit more about their opponent and kind of what you're thinking about this season.
Yeah, they've got Presbyterian Tuesday night, and Chase for Stackhouse this year. It's year 5, so he's coming into a big year. I mean, you don't make the tournament in 5 years as a Power Five head coach. You know, the administration has reason to let you go. I mean, there's really no way around that. So there's pressure, but I think they're better than people think. I think they return one of the better backcourts in the SEC with Ezra Manjon and Tyron Lawrence. And they've got some nice pieces around them. They've got some younger guys coming in. They've got some newcomers as freshmen coming in. But there's just a ton of pressure, man. So it'll be interesting to see, especially in the non-conference. Last year they really struggled in the non-conference. They lost to Southern Miss. They lost to Grambling. They lost at VCU. So they had some games that are just brutal losses that you just can't afford to lose to those teams and still hope to be on track for an NCAA tournament berth. Now they went on a hot streak there at the end. I mean, they won something crazy like 9 of their last 12 games, and they beat Kentucky twice in the span of about 2 weeks. They beat them at Rupp, and they beat them at Bridgestone. So I think they're a good team, Chase. But are they good enough to make the tournament? The SEC is loaded. So that makes it tough. And so, they're going to play a lot of small ball. They don't have Liam Robbins anymore. So they're not going to be able to throw it into him and get a bucket. But I love their guards. And man, when you get to March late in the season, guards win games. So I think this might be another season where they get hot, they find themselves late in the season. Is it going to be enough though? Is it going to be enough? I think they're really underappreciated. I think they're projected to be finish number 11. And I don't blame the voters on putting them there. I really don't. I mean, they've got to go out there and earn it. So I think they've got a chip on their shoulder. I think they'll be a bubble team. And they're at Memorial Gym, man. I mean, they play their home games in one of the tougher environments. I mean, nobody wants to go into Memorial and try to beat Vandy, a team that has some pesky guards that I think can win games. So it'd be fun. It's gonna be a fun season. You mentioned Tennessee. Connects a heck of a player. Vanderbilt just doesn't really have a guy like that. I mean, Tyler Lawrence is a good player, but I don't even know if he is a guy they can consistently get the ball to and say, "Hey, go get us a bucket." I think they will most of the time, but do they have enough? That's gonna be the question. A lot of pressure on Stackhouse. If he doesn't make the tournament, a lot of people think he should be fired. A lot of fans calling it tournament or bust, and I don't blame them. I mean, I'm with them. I don't know if the administration will make a move if he doesn't make the tournament. I think that's kind of a bad news scenario. But if it's just a brutal season and they don't get close to the tournament, I think they've got no other option than to make a move. So, Chase, this is a program that should be good at basketball year in, year out. I think you'd agree. I think most people would agree. Um, they just they played below what they can do. Like last year, I mean, towards the end of the season, they started playing well. But at the end of the day, man, you got to beat those non-conference teams that you should beat. So that's what I'm looking at. Can they win those non-conference games they're supposed to win? If they do, they give themselves a shot. So we'll see. It'll be fun.
I am actually very excited about Vanderbilt basketball. I'm one of those people who have high expectations for them this year. I think they I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I think they're getting in the tournament this year. I think there's a lot of pressure, but even last year they got really hot late, and even made they pulled off a couple wins in the NIT as well. And I think I don't know I don't know if I like Stackhouse. I know we were texting the other day. To me, he seems like he's trying to go the Dion route this year. Former player, and he's trying to get more media attention, which good on him if he can pull it off. But we'll see. I think Vanderbilt is going to have a pretty decent season this year, and we get to play each other twice. I think, yeah, twice this season.
Yep,
So that's gonna be fun. We don't. It's not like football where in a couple weeks we'll do our one-off rivalry week. You're gonna get two rivalry games uh for basketball season. And I don't know if people know this. This podcast started basically because of basketball. My first interview with Billy was talking Vanderbilt basketball. So the
that's
basis
right.
of the birth of this podcast was basketball, and I'm very excited for this upcoming season. I'm gonna go ahead real quick. I'm gonna give you the future play for the week or for the year. I like Miami to win it all this college basketball season. Plus 40,000. $5 wins you 240 bucks. We
Mm,
like it. Larinaga, it's one of he's a good coach. He's got good guards. So that's my future of the year right there. Billy, it's been fun. It has been a loaded show. We will have our rankings put on our Twitter, and we will get this podcast uploaded and put on our Twitter as well. Just follow us there, and you can keep up with us there. But you guys have a wonderful night, and we will see y'all next week.